Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Kristin Morris. So glad to have you with us for our Conversations in Coffee program out of the Cultural Arts Center. We're here virtually and by virtue for this day as we're surrounded by crazy COVID. It's not going to get the best of us. We are moving on into this wonderful world of Zoom, made possible by Lindsay Lasanti, our technical artist. And we are so delighted to have you, Kristin Morris, bringing to us the essence of character in our main gallery with David Leonard and Steve Jebbett. I went to the Cultural Arts Center to see it. Dave and Steve will be with us in our Conversations and Coffee program in January. But we're having with us today Kristin Morris, a Columbus-based ceramic artist and mixed media sculptor. You graduated from the College of Worcester with a studio art major and later then went to Columbus College of Art and Design, majoring in illustration. In 2003, you graduated from Ohio State University with a master's degree in social work. What an amazing combination, art and social work, huh? You're inspired by folk art, surrealism, the work of Tim Burton and Jim Henson, popular culture. You love inventing unique characters and telling their stories through your pieces with great attention to detail. You've sculpted haunted houses, made props for a costume shop, constructed animals for a water park ride, to name a few. You can tell us more, huh? Amazing, Kristin. The essence of character shows works constructed from found objects. Tell us how you love to go to flea markets and thrift stores and garage sales to find odd bits and pieces. Tell us, how is that, Kristin, that you just love to do that?
I guess my parents have always enjoyed going to flea markets. And when I was a little kid, I always thought, oh, that is so boring. But actually, I find a lot of really cool pieces that I kind of look at something and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I could use that in a piece. And I can actually see it as I'm looking at it, what it could become in one of my pieces. And my mom is actually really good at that. Like, she's a potter and she makes pretty conventional wheel thrown pottery compared to what I do, the hand building. But she can look at stuff and say, hey, I think you could use this for something. And she gives me great ideas too. So it's awesome because we find a lot of cool stuff there.
And your mother is with us today.
Both my parents are.
Yes. Mom, Dad, introduce yourselves. Give us your names.
My name is
Dad?
Bob.
Leslie.
Leslie?
Yeah.
And?
Bob.
Bob. Leslie and Bob, how wonderful to have you with us. You must be so proud of that daughter of yours, huh?
Right. We're
Yeah.
proud of both our kids. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Kristin, you want to come forward?
So what did you want me to talk about?
Your work, the essence of character, and how you love to do what you're doing. And the exhibit itself.
Basically, you mean how I define the essence of character, or?
Well, you can mention that too, and then tell us about your pieces. You're going to show us some of your pieces, right?
Yeah, I think, the essence of character is just tied into what the pieces are made out of, and how they're the character is tied into what, they are characters individually, but then they're also made out of found objects. And I love working with found objects because I like combining the sculpted ceramics and the found objects. And it's interesting I also use this medium called Epoxy Sculpt, which is it's a two-part clay that you mix the clay and the like a two-part mix half and half together, and then it sets up on its own, so you don't need to use a kiln or anything like that. So I use that a lot, as well as just the ceramic clay in my work.
Ah, that's great. So we want to see some of your examples, your pieces that you have there. Wonderful.
So we're going to start here with the first image that we have.
Okay, did you want me to kind of talk about each piece?
Yeah, great.
Okay, this is the anglerfish. And this is the second anglerfish that I made. I originally made one a few years ago, and a lot of people seemed to like it for a show that I was in at the Fresh Air Gallery. So this piece is number 2. The first one had actually broken, and people were like, oh no, that's terrible. But I gave it to my parents because I didn't want to sell a piece that had been repaired and broken, you know. But what it is I grew up spending about, I would say, every other summer, several weeks in the Bahamas, where my dad taught a marine biology course with another professor. And so I love fish and snorkeling. And so I decided to make anglerfish. And this piece is made out of found objects, and with the cones for the teeth from the pottery kiln. And then also the eyes were like plaster eyes that are bloodshot that someone had given to me for Halloween, but I painted them. And then I kind of constructed the little hanging like metal light kind of thing from found objects that I had. And then I finished it with underglazes because with my pieces, I used to paint everything with acrylics. And then Eric Rausch at the Cultural Arts Center got me into using underglazes, which I really like. But I feel like I have more control with acrylics, but I still use underglazes. So this piece I did with the underglazes, and I really had a lot of fun with it. So this is one of the pieces that's in the show.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
How big is that?
It's probably about, let's see, maybe 16 inches long, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I have all the measurements somewhere, but I'm not exactly. Oh wait, I think I do have the measurements. I could tell you. It's 20 inches long by 11 inches high. I just happen to have that sitting next to me here. So.
Thank you.
When you were studying art at Columbus College of Art and Design, for example, how did this approach to art come to you? Has this developed?
You mean the way that my style, or?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. I think I've always been interested in illustration and surrealism.
Uh-huh.
I took a 3D illustration course there the whole time I was there, and I really learned a lot about mold making, and that's where I got my first job sculpting at a haunted house. So I think it did come to me through that, partly, but then also I'm inspired, like you had mentioned, Ellen, by Jim Henson and Tim Burton and kind of the pop culture, pop surrealism, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this piece, the snail, I made in Eric Rausch's ceramic class a few years ago. And the snail in the shell is made out of ceramics. And then unfortunately in the kiln, the shell got too thin and it broke. It cracked in a few places. So I thought I would use that to my advantage. And I put like little flowers and vegetation in the cracks to make it look like it was, little things were growing out of it. And then I spent quite a bit of time on Pinterest, and I found that they had characters that kind of ride on snails. And I thought it might be interesting if I took something and I made the characters writing on the back out of like gourds and Epoxy Sculpt. So those guys are riding on the snail, and I just call it snail riders.
Amazing. That is amazing.
Thank you. That's one of my favorite pieces, I think.
Yeah, it's just
Really,
great.
I love the surface texture on the snail. It's so detailed and great.
Thank you. I'm really into texture. I'm a really big texture person. So,
And how
and
long? Go ahead.
it's all painted. The whole thing is acrylic. I didn't use any glaze on this one. And then the Cyclops, I don't know why I decided to make a Cyclops snail. I seem to be into making Cyclopses. I don't know why, but.
How long did it take for you to create this?
That took me a long time. I would say several weeks. It took me to sculpt a snail, and then just always putting it on the shelf. Well, Lindsay knows about this from ceramics, putting everything on the shelf and lifting it up and being afraid you're going to drop it, and then covering it. And I had Eric help me put it up. And then I had so many ideas of what to make to put on the back of it. You know, I was going to put little army men like fighting, and then I thought, nah, I should make things riding. So I don't know. It's like, it took a long time, but I'm happy with it. So.
Well, as you talk about the essence of character in the work, the essence of your character in patience and waiting it out as it's being created, feeling sometimes that it could break. Wow, it takes a lot, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot.
Mm.
I've started recently getting into sewing a little bit, because I think with the sewing, you can see more instant results. Because with clay, I started working for the show over 2 years ago, because you know how long clay takes to work on things. So, yeah.
Well, I watch and see that in the studio with Eric's class, but I don't do it. But I see the patience that it takes.
Yeah. I have a lot of patience for making little details.
Great.
Okay, and then the bone birds. This is kind of a funny story. Like, I was asking Lindsay about if she had taken Jim Bowling's class at Otterbein. I took the Otterbein Summer Ceramics Institute the year before, 2 years ago, and we learned how to make plaster molds, press molds. It was from Erica Sonata, who's like an internationally known clay artist, which I loved. But I molded the head for these bone birds and then pressed clay into it. And then I made these birds, and I was going to have little stubby arms that I was going to just hang keys from them. Like, I have a bunch of key rings of keys. And then Denise Remecki, who was also in the class, who's my clay teacher at the Cultural Arts Center, she said, why don't you make wings? And you could make them all in different, you know, like configurations. And I thought, that's a great idea. So I nixed the idea on the just the keys and the stubby arms, and I added all these arms kind of waving around. And then I have a few that are flying. I don't know if you've seen the show, but they're kind of up on the wall. Like, these are grounded, and it's kind of an evolving type of bird. And then I added the beads hanging down with little shells to kind of give it sort of a decorative element. And these are also underglaze, and then they have copper oxide on them.
Now tell us about copper oxide. I know you mentioned that in your.
It's kind of a wash. You paint it on, and then you wipe it back, and it collects in the cracks. Like, you can see where the dark area is on here, and it gives it kind of like a shading. Like, it just brings out the details. If you have a lot of like surface texture and stuff, then it collects in the texture and then gives you a lot of detail. So I was I did it more on some other pieces, but you can see it on these where, you know, in the robe and stuff.
It's gorgeous.
Mhm.
Hmm.
The thing about clay is it's unpredictable too, you know. So, you know, it's predictable and it's unpredictable. You never know kind of with the glaze or the underglaze. And Lindsay could probably attest to this too. I mean, you never know totally what you're going to come out with. So,
Mm.
and then this is the Hedgehogs. I had a lot of fun with these guys. I named them Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And I sculpted the whole thing out of clay, and then I painted them with underglaze. And then after I took them out of the kiln, I put copper oxide on them, as you can kind of tell, like in the cracks of the faces and stuff like that. And then the spines are made out of golf tees. So I took the golf tees, and I have this tool that cuts wood really well. So I cut the golf tees, and then I took Epoxy Sculpt and attached them to the back with Epoxy Sculpt, and then I painted them. So they took quite a bit of time, but they were a lot of fun.
Oh, genius.
Well, you know, it's funny, when I went to the sporting goods store, I went to Play It Again Sports to get the golf tees. And I just wanted like a few handfuls, and the guy tried to sell me this huge fish bowl full of golf tees. It was like, I don't think I need that many. I mean, there must have been thousands of them in there, because then I would have felt obligated to use them for the next like 5 years or something. So,
They have such personality.
oh, thank you. Yeah.
You must know Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Well, you know, I hate when people say my work is so cute. That drives me crazy. So I could say scary cute, but I think these guys are cute. I mean, I have to describe them as cute, because they are. The stuff you run into later in the presentation is not cute. So,
They are.
Wonderful.
and then these are the robots. These are another flea market find I got several months ago, the date stampers. I found a woman that was selling those, and I thought I should make something kind of mechanical to put on the head. And I decided that I would make robots, because I thought that would kind of go along with the theme. So those are made out of Epoxy Sculpt. And then I have a collection of zippers that have the metal teeth. If you saw my house, you would realize I have so many like objects to use for my sculpture. And my mom is laughing now, I can tell, because I have like, my whole house is full of found objects. My whole basement is too. But so I cut the zippers and put them in there for the teeth. And then I made the heads out of Epoxy Sculpt, and I pressed some metal pieces into them. And then I painted them with these Lumiere paints. They're like a kind of a metallic paint that's kind of glittery. And then I varnished them. So yeah.
They're great. They're great.
Are those light bulbs for the?
They are. They're
Okay.
little light bulbs.
Ah, amazing.
Do these people have names?
No, they don't have names. The robots don't. I just had them titled A, B, C, D. They don't have names, but a lot of my work does have names.
I think you should give them names.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what's funny is at the flea market, I found somebody had a bag of like 200 leather names. And I've been titling all of my dolls. I look for the name and then I attach it to the doll. But for these, I really, you know, didn't do that. But you're right, I should give everything a name.
They just look like they need a really whimsical name.
Yeah.
Are the date stamps still functional? Like, would you still be able to use these as date stamps?
You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I have no idea. I think they still, well, I don't know if I put the clay down there too far that they wouldn't push down. I haven't tried it since I sculpted them, so I'm not sure.
Ah.
But I'm hoping I'll find some more sometime because they were fun to do. You
You know,
never know what you're going to find at the flea market.
as I look at these, having seen them in the show, right?
Mhm.
It having more time to relate to them, they become more of a character. I
Mhm.
kind of passed by them, but not now. There's such personality in each one of them, huh? It's,
Well, they were kind of off to the side too, sort of in the corner. So maybe, but I know they do, they're each kind of unique, I guess.
they truly are. Again, another mark of your genius. When do you think of this? As you're doing it? Or
Sleep very well. So I think of a lot of this at night when I'm going to bed. I try not to think of art stuff at night actually because it keeps me up and then I have a hard time thinking stuff. So
oh, it's
um
magnificent. Hmm.
and then this is the rooster. His name is, I believe it's Rocky. Um and he kind of has his wings on his hips with like kind of a like attitude. And the shoes I found at the flea market, they're cobbler shoes. I've also made ducks like this that have the shoes. And then I painted him with acrylics and he was fun to paint. I couldn't decide what kind of rooster I should orient him towards because there were so many different paint jobs that you could do on different roosters, so I kept changing and going, oh, I should try this, I should try that. And
How tall is he?
how tall?
Mhm.
He is 19 inches high.
Wow, I love the things that hang down, the way you finish them.
Oh, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've made, I like to make ducks too. The and Yeah, I enjoyed working on him. He was kind of sitting around my studio for a while, and then I went back to him, and then I started again, and then I went back to him. Thank you.
Well, he's not cute. He's got an attitude.
He does have an attitude, yes.
I just, it would be easy to befriend him. It feels as though you could strike up a conversation. What do you think he wants to say to us, Kristin?
I'm not, well, I don't know.
It's what's your problem, lady?
Yeah,
Oh, I love it.
that's true. I don't know. That's probably what he would say.
Oh. Wonderful.
Yeah, he was fun.
Uh-huh.
And then this is the piece the scary piece. I named him Carrot Top. And this went through various stages of working on. I started out the actual body, and it took me a long time to put all the wrinkles in and get it to look right. And then my favorite movie is Aliens. And I don't know if you know Aliens, but there's this creature that bursts out of the chest of people. It's kind of a sci-fi horror movie. I wasn't really like making it to look like that per se, but it kind of looks like there's this octopus kind of alien coming out of the chest. And I just thought it would be, at first I was only going to have the hands pulling the shirt apart. But then I thought it'd be fun to put a creature in there. So that kind of evolved into putting that on there. And then the head was going to be on a spring, like a heavy duty spring. But it was too heavy and that didn't work. So I put some big corks under the head. And then the head has two pieces actually. And then my mom was nice enough to make the collar for that because my sewing skills aren't there yet to make the collar. So she did a really nice job with that, and that covered up the neck. And then the crown or the hat I bought at the flea market. And then he's got kind of a pained expression on his face. And to be honest, I enjoy making clowns and jesters, but I'm not really a fan because they kind of scare me. And this piece scares me. I mean, I respect clowns, but I think because of their expressions and their bright colors, they're fun to make. But and I have a friend that's a professional clown, but I just get a little, I don't know. Sometimes they make me a little nervous. But
The precision of the teeth and the tongue. Wow.
Oh, thank you. I had fun working on them. And I put, the way that I usually do the underglazes is I paint. This is different. I didn't put the copper oxide on it, but I painted the underglaze, like for instance on the head, and then I put, I fired it, and then I put like a dark brown wash over it, and then I wiped it back so that the dark brown collected in the cracks and around the face and in the eye and stuff like that. So I'm happy with how it came out. And the funny thing is, Bazi that works at the front desk, she's like, I kept thinking that the clown was talking. She kept feeling like, this is pretty funny, but
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
so
Parrot.
yeah, but it is a little scary.
Hi, Kristin.
Hi, Marianne.
I know it took me a while to figure out how to get on here, so I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I've been enjoying your artist talk.
Thank you.
Great.
So, yeah, but that's about all with the clown. I don't know. Oh, this is Arrowhead. This piece is kind of demented as well. I noticed when they described our show, in the write-up in the Cultural Arts Center, they mentioned that there were some disturbing works. So I assume they were referring to me because I don't think David and Steve really have any disturbing works. So, but this guy was actually supposed to have a vice closing on his head. And it was like squeezing shut, and I was going to call it Excedrin headache.
Yeah.
But the vice thing did not work out. I couldn't get it to attach right. So then I was at my parents' house. They have a 3-car detached garage studio at their house, and I was working on it. And I happened to say, hey, do you have an arrow? And they did. So I cut the arrow and it fit there perfectly. So I called it Arrowhead. And it's kind of a play on words because my dad collects arrowheads, and it does have an arrow in the head. So Arrowhead. And it's kind of, got the green skin, and it's kind of distraught looking. And I realize that it's rather disturbing. But
Well, I like the story behind it.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
It's too bad you can't get describing your painting, whatever your art. It's hard to put everything into words with each piece. It would be interesting, if people knew the story behind each one of your pieces. Would be, pretty cool. Because then, when people look at it, you're like, well, do I tell them about each one? Or, it's hard, especially with your work, to put something, like the history, like where you put a little bit into each one. But the title of it I agreed with your other pieces about putting, names to everything, because then people associate it with like something in their mind, memory, like collecting arrowheads or going to Northern Ohio, or certain
Mhm.
parks or gardens. It may bring them to that particular piece, and then there'll be a memory, and then they're like, oh, and then they connect to it. So I don't know. I don't want to say your stuff is disturbing. I mean, I've seen a lot more stuff that was really like, wow, I think it's I wouldn't call it disturbing. I would say it's a conversational piece.
Hmm.
I would call it that, because you know, that, I mean, to me it's like, there's the hands, the texture of the face. So yeah, I mean, I think that by putting a title to it, you gave that history about your dad, and it ties more into it. So I don't know. I know sometimes like you have little note cards, like to your website, but I don't know if you could like do a little synopsis, but maybe not. I mean, because you got so many pieces, but something like something like this one with the history about your dad and the arrow, how it ties into stuff. I mean, something like that would be kind of neat for people to learn, know a little bit more about the piece.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I have one more image. I think it's Buddy. Yeah,
Aw.
this is Buddy. He's also a flea market find. I have these books that have some interesting stickers in them. And I saw this sticker that had a six-eyed monster, and it's totally different from mine. The only similarity is that it has 6 eyes and it's a similar color. But I thought it would be fun to make this like toddler. And Eric had the idea to make him sucking his thumb. So I made this toddler, and then my mom found the baby shoes at the flea market for like $1. And I wanted him to have these like really big shoes that are kind of dwarfing his body. And then I found the little duck at the flea market, like he's pulling this duck toy. And the teeth I got from Jim Bowling, actually, at Otterbein. He had some teeth that they got. And on the back of the head, which I don't have a picture of, but there's a movie, I believe it's called Miss Peregrine's School for Peculiar Children. And there's a girl on there who has a mouth in the back of her head, and she's like feeding a drumstick to this mouth. And so I put that kind of inspired me. So I put a mouth on the back of the head, and I think there's an eye back there too. There might be one eye and a mouth, but I can't really remember. I haven't looked at it in a while. And then the one that goes with this is Beulah. There's a little girl riding a tricycle, and she's got a little mouse, and she's got 5 eyes, and then there's an eye on the back of her head. They're on the same pedestal, but I didn't include a picture of that one. I think there's a lot of imagination in my pieces, definitely. I mean, people say to me, I would love to get inside your head. And I'm like, I don't think you would, because there's a lot of stuff going on in there. And I think I do have a pretty active imagination. I'm always coming up with ideas for stuff that I want to work on. And it's just a matter, I have so many ideas. It's just a matter of trying to get stuff done. So it's kind of crazy, like just sometimes like I trying to articulate what I want to say with my work. And then during the pandemic, I started getting into sewing more because I got a sewing machine a few years ago. And so I've been sewing dolls on the sewing machine and making like skeletons and voodoo dolls and kind of my own type of things with that too. So So I think that's all the pictures that I have or photos.
These dolls that you mentioned are, tell us about those. Are they life size or, you know, what are they?
No, they're not life size. They're anywhere from about like 8 to 10 inches. And they're basically what I do is I take, you know, I just draw out a pattern and I sew them. And then I take, I sculpt like the features, like the face or something. And then I make a mold and then I pour it in resin and then I paint it. So they're a combination of sculpted and sewn dolls. And then I have them at my studio in Chrome Edge. And I've been making them for a few years, different ones. So I don't want to do too many different things, but I'm just, you know, kind of spreading out a little bit.
Thank you.
That studio is in Franklinton, huh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, tell us about your studio.
Well, I share the studio with Mary Ann, who's on here, and then David Leonard from the show, and then somebody, Jax Fishburne, and we are there through the Fresh Air Gallery. So they have the studio and we work there. It's a pretty big studio. And there's the 4 of us, and I guess I've been over there for maybe 2 years. So I do all of my ceramic work over there, and then we participate in Franklinton Fridays where people come through the gallery on the second Friday of every month, although I don't believe they're not having one in December, but they had one in November and October. So I think once COVID gets better, they'll probably start up again.
And you're making a wonderful contribution to Franklinton.
They are
Oh.
having a virtual Festivus outside, right? And also online.
They are, and I'm going to be part of the online Festivus. So I have a website that I'm going to be part of the online Festivus. And that's the weekend that Franklinton Fridays would normally be, the second weekend in December.
So people that are interested could go to the 400 West Rich website, right?
I believe
have
so. Yeah, they'll be posting that.
Well, you had a major master's degree in social work. How do you relate that degree to this world of art that you're sharing with us?
Well, I thought I like working with kids a lot, and I like working with people. I thought it would be fun to get into art therapy, but I don't really have the desire or the means to go back to school for an art therapy degree. Even though I have a master's in social work and a degree in studio art, I don't have the art therapy degree. But I did my field placement with some art therapists at United Methodist Children's Home. So I worked for a while. I volunteered at a studio for artists with developmental disabilities, and I really enjoyed that. So I think, I enjoy working with artists, and if combining the two, kind of, I think.
Once upon a time, we had Don Jones, who's the father of art therapy.
Oh, okay.
And coffee.
Nice.
Thinking of you, how the resources that you have, what you do, such a contribution to holistic health. It's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And of course, not to mention the therapy connected with going on garage sales and collecting bits and pieces. And go ahead.
I feel like art has really saved my life, because art has been such an incredible thing for me in terms of keeping me like in a good place and helping me through some tough times, you know. And like art is the one thing, like I never want to retire from what I do because I just love art so much, you know. It's just such a big part of my life. And I always want to be doing it, you know. And art runs through my whole family as well. Like my whole family are artists, and you know, my extended family, there's a lot of artists. So
Mhm. And you mentioned your husband being a surgeon right now, going and also an artist, huh?
oh, that's my brother.
Oh, that's your brother. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's a part of your family that you're uh, in conversation about and sharing.
Yeah, it's nice because we really have a lot to talk about and we have a lot in common. And you know, he's really a talented artist, and it's fun to just see what he comes up with. And I think it'd be great to have a show together and have just our work side by side, you know, and or pick a theme and then have his interpretation and then my interpretation. I think it would be very fascinating.
What is his media?
He does painting and drawing.
Huh.
His art is totally different from Chris's. You'd never think they came from the same family. He does very lifelike figure drawing, and everything he does is pretty lifelike. So she's at one end of the spectrum and he's at the other end of the spectrum.
And you, Mama, have facilitated that wonderful individuality, huh?
Well, they didn't get it from me. I'm a crafts person, but I'm not an artist.
Made it possible in them to be individual. That's
Yeah, no, they are. They're very, very different, and their artwork is so different. Like she said, it'd be neat for them to have a show together because their work is from total ends of the spectrum. So
and then Kristin, you said, is it then what art medium is your husband? How does he express art?
Well, I'm not married, but you know, I mean, you mean my father?
Okay, I just guess I confused something in the notes. So yes, I guess you're all right. Is it your father then?
Oh, he's done scientific illustration,
Ah,
and he makes plaques out of clay, and he carves candle holders that my mom throws on the wheel.
oh, I see.
So he's kind of dabbles in a lot of different things.
Uh-huh. That's wonderful. A gift of family to the world of art, huh? Thank you. Mhm.
Yeah. So
When did you sort of pick hand building as like your form of your medium? When did you have you done work on the wheel, and like how do you go between hand building and wheel when you create your works?
I did the wheel in college. I never did it. My mom had a pottery wheel from the time I was little kid, but I never used it. But I did take pottery in college where we did wheel work for, you know, 1 or 2 semesters. But I think I've always kind of done sculpture with clay, being that my mom was a potter. I started out with small sculptures. But in college, we had to do an independent study, like half of our junior year and our whole senior year. And my senior year, I did these huge, like gargoyle type sculptures out of clay. And I guess I really got into hand building then. I just started making them. And at that point, I had to like learn how to fire the kiln, and I had to, you know, really just do a lot of it myself. And it was kind of, I had an advisor, but I pretty much had to learn a lot of this stuff on my own. And it was pretty scary at first, you know. And then since then, I think I've mainly done more clay hand building in the last several years because once I started at CCAD, I got into like the 3D illustration and doing like the haunted house stuff. And then I was making puppets. I was making molds and making puppets, and I was making cement garden sculptures. I had a business making cement garden sculptures for a while, where I would sculpt a piece in clay and then make a latex and then a cement mold, and then I would pour them in cement. So I've kind of been running the gamut of different things. But if that's a long-winded answer to your question, I guess.
Amazing.
So I've kind of done a lot of different mold making and casting, and but I was really excited about the class I took at Otterbein last summer, because like I said, I had never done press molds with clay. And that was a lot of fun to, actually learn from I was the only like non-teacher in the class besides Otterbein students that were ceramic artists. And I learned so much, and it really helped me with, now I just made 4 molds the other day that I'm going to press clay into that are plaster. So I'm waiting for them to dry, although in this weather, it's, who knows, next year maybe they'll be dry.
There's that patience again of your expression. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I have a lot of patience, so I do a lot of on my sculptures. On some of the things that I do the epoxy sculpt on, I paint little checkerboards and little detailed paintings, and I really get into that like fine detail. It kind of drives me crazy, but at the same time I crave it. So yeah, I have fun.
Time will go by so quickly. I imagine time just goes by so quickly when you get into that expression.
It does very much so.
Are you a working artist, or do you have other employment?
No, I'm a working artist. So I'm trying to kind of get out there and maybe get into more places to sell my work. I'm working on that. I have some pieces at Ohio Designer Craftsman in the Gifts of the Craftsman right now. And then I'm doing the Merry Krampus online virtual show this Sunday
What
from
is
10
that?
to 5. It's online. It's just Merry Krampus. It's they were going to have it at Strongwater down in Franklinton, but then it became virtual. So it's kind of like a dark art type show that a lot of my stuff fits into. And then Festivus. So yeah, I haven't really had any live shows this year because of COVID. I normally do art shows, but
well, we're glad you're with us.
no, thank you. It's been good being with you.
Oh yeah, it's marvelous.
Well, I've enjoyed seeing your pieces. I wish I could see them in the flesh, so to speak.
Yeah.
Oh no, thank you. I know it's hard with the pandemic, with everything changing so much. Yeah, but I'm glad we were able to put them up for a little while at least. It was nice that, and Lauren did a great job curating the show. She really had a tremendous impact on how everything looked. And so Lauren Pond did a super job with the show. And, Steve and David were a lot of fun to work with too. I think all of our stuff went really well together.
I hope maybe you can do it again when people can get in there. See it.
No, that would be nice sometime. Yeah.
Sort of look at this as a dry run, have a real thing happen later.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility that they'll leave it up?
No, I don't think so. I think we're going to take it down because I think there's another show coming up maybe in January. And I know the center is closed right now.
Yeah, that show in January actually just got moved too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hi, Katie.
Hello.
Yeah.
I do have a, oh, go ahead, Ellen, sorry.
Well, moved to a later date.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll have a little bit, and that's sort of, I had a question on that of, because I am an artist as well and I like to exhibit. How did it feel to kind of have all this work come together, install it all, and sort of know that your audience was going to be a lot more limited
Um,
or different, I guess, just with maybe people virtually looking at it because they didn't want to or couldn't come in person? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on sort of exhibiting, not knowing who all might see it.
I mean, it was tough. I think not having an opening and stuff definitely was tough. I think it came together really well. With all the work that you guys did, which I think it really looked good. I think it was definitely challenging not knowing if people were going to be able to see it or not. I think with virtual stuff, it's always hard to tell like what the reception is going to be. You know, but I'm pleased that we were able to have the show and be able to put it up. But it is, with a pandemic, everything is so unknown, and I know with the schedule at the Cultural Arts Center, it's hard to change, like, since there's a set schedule, to keep changing one show and then it would affect another show and then that would affect something else, so you can't really keep moving stuff around, I guess.
Thank you for being so flexible and understanding of it. And when I went in, there was a fair amount of people in and out. Katie, that day I came in and you were there, it was hopeful,
Yeah.
that there have been people
Yeah.
viewing
that
the show.
sure have been.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
More were able to come in, especially with us having classes back, and yeah.
And with
expanding.
today's sharing, that was good.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Do you know, Katie, when it's going to be closed through the Cultural Arts Center? Do you know yet? Or is it?
I don't have it confirmed, but I think it's tentatively will open back up January 4th. I don't know for sure. So don't.
No, I'm just curious. So the next show was bumped from January to something else.
Well, because the like mayoral shutdown, or like, Parks and Recs having to be closed, is until December 19th. And if I'm remembering my dates correctly, that would already put us past classes being finished. So for the next session, we have sort of that holiday break period that we're looking at January 4th.
Yeah, I just got my refund this morning.
I did too. I got mine yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I have.
It takes a lot of patience to get through this, what we're calling crazy COVID.
Huh.
And do you know the humor of that exquisite purple fish? What's that fish's name, Kristin?
Oh, the first picture?
Yes.
Oh, that's an anglerfish.
I love it. It's like a mantra for me.
That's a tribute to my mom, because I used the cones from her pottery kiln to make the teeth for that fish. So I got those from my mom. So I
Well,
used her stuff to make my pieces.
well, right.
Kind of happy. Oh, yeah.
Hmm?
We're kind of happy the first one broke and we got it. So we have it hanging in the bathroom with all her other fish. She has how many? Probably six to seven fish that she made that are hanging in our bathroom.
Oh, wow. Well, as we focus through this purple time of crazy COVID, you've just given us so much, Kristin. It is wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You've been so patient in your work. You call us to be amazed at how detail and being present to detail brings us to beauty and humor and art. And I'm just so grateful to you. And I'm sure everyone is too. Those who,
Yes, she's an amazing artist.
yes, we clapped, and even though the sound is
Yeah. And the show was great. Several of us went on opening night. It was fantastic.
Oh, great. Well, our next Conversations in Coffee is going to be related to this time that we've been going through. I don't know if anybody else has noticed the speeders on the road, the lack of focus in driving. Well, some time ago, I invited AAA and the Fisher College of Business to talk about the art of attentive driving. It calls us to art, does it not? To be attentive, the focus. Well, since I asked them last
I
January,
have to leave. I've got somebody at the door.
we've had COVID. And so in talking with them, they're saying, yes, sure enough, we need to talk about the art of attentive driving. So this December 17th, Conversations in Coffee, we're going to have Cindy Anderkin, the manager of public and government affairs with AAA and the safety program, along with Philip Renard, executive director of the Risk Institute of the Fisher College of Business at OSU. And they are going to combine this theme of the art of driving attentively, the art that will keep us alive if we're focused and attentive, huh? So that is December 17th, Conversations in Coffee, and then going into January 7th, we will be with your partners in this beautiful Essence of Character exhibit. So Kristin, we thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Did you have a good time too?
I did.
Wonderful, I can tell. Sharing this, the gifts of your art world that you bring to us in the essence of character.
Thank you.